Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today, Wargaming released quite a large devblog answering some frequently asked questions in regards to submarines. We're going to go through this here today. I'm going to read the responses in full and not just take bits and pieces out of context. So if you want to read along as I read aloud, link to this devblog is in the description down below. I will throw up any relevant images or artwork up on screen, although they don't have many at all. So we're going to go through, hit on some of the highlights of this devblog, and again, we're probably not going to get to every single question in the devblog, but we're definitely going to go over the main ones. So I do highly encourage you guys to stick around and check out this devblog afterwards. Alright, so let's go ahead and get going. At the start, they introduce the article as Submarines, Your Questions Answered. Our game has taken an important step. Submarines have appeared in early access since the beginning of their development. We have made significant progress and done a lot of work to bring the new class to its current state. We understand that it is impossible to make submarine gameplay suit everyone, but we strive to create a comfortable and understandable gameplay loop that will provide many players with a new and interesting experience. Of course, after the release of Submarines, we will continue to work on this new class. However, as we have already stated, for the next few updates after 11.9, we're not planning any significant changes. This way, players can get used to the new class, submarines can find their place in the meta, and we can gather the most relevant and accurate statistics possible. With the release of Submarines in early access, we also want to give answers to the most popular questions regarding the new ship type in our game. And right off the start, the big one, why are you adding submarines to the game? The main purpose of adding submarines to the game is to diversify the game experience. Adding a new ship type is a very big step for the development of our game. To keep players happy and engaged for many years to come, our game has to constantly evolve and change. A continuous and regular flow of new content, new mechanics, and new gameplay introduces a wider variety of experiences and interactions between players, both of which are extremely important in a game like World of Warships. The subs have come a long way in testing, almost 3 years since the concept was created. Finally, only about a year ago, subs were added to random battles, where we, based on your battles, brought them up to release-ready status. That's a long way to go for developing one ship type, and we needed to move on. Thus, the next step is getting the submarines into early access. Of course, all this time we've been watching the perception of the new class as well, evaluating many parameters and metrics to make sure we're moving in the right direction. Players' perception of submarines varied, but in different attitudes toward change or normal. That's one way to put it. Separately, we should note that the perception of submarines appeared to be significantly influenced by the fact of playing them. By the fact of playing on them. That's some interesting English. Those who played at least a few battles with submarines better understood their gameplay strengths, weaknesses, and overall effectiveness. The chart below shows how the number of players who were against adding submarines to the game permanently varied based on the number of battles played on submarines. This data is taken from the Update 11.8 survey. In previous updates, the values and their dynamics are on the same level. So the first bar, so this is, when they popped up that survey, do you support submarines? Do you think adding submarines into the game? Do you like adding submarines? Those surveys that they already have every now and then. So this is the results of that survey. The first bar is 0 battles played, and 43% of them said no. Second bar, 1 to 5 battles played, 23% of them said no. Third bar, 6 to 25 battles played, only 11% of them said no. Yeah, so this is something that it's not unique to submarines, this perception at least, that, this is broken and needs to be absolutely nerfed. This, I find, is a thing across all classes. You have players that never played DDs, never played CVs, never played cruisers, and then when obviously they get wrecked by one, they jump into the forums or whatever and declare something's overpowered, or they have that mindset that this is broken because they don't understand how it works. There's so many players that I see still today, which is really surprising, complaining about invisible DD torps, even though there's signs that you need to be looking out for when a DD is hunting you down, like a Shimakaze is on your flank and they're throwing torpedoes at you. You're detected, that yellow icon, that yellow exclamation point is up and highlighted, and it's shouting at you that you're detected, but you kept sailing in a straight line because you don't understand how it works. So a lot of what I say in order to counter that is that you need to try out this class. Playing the class teaches you the weaknesses and the strengths of that class. Next time you're being hunted down by a DD, you have a pretty good idea of what that DD is doing because you've played that class beforehand. So I can definitely see, like from my experience dealing with players that don't understand how a certain class works, how this definitely does line up with what I've seen in game. Now, even though, of course, they say that 6 to 25 battles played, only 11% of those players said no to adding submarines into the game. I don't necessarily think that's a signal saying that they want the submarines in the game. I'm just assuming players that have played, multiple battles of submarines have kind of accepted the fact that they're coming into the game. So, yeah, like I still don't think they need to introduce them into the game, but it's obviously a little late for that. I've thrown my hopes of them just shelving all this half a year ago, because it's obvious that they were going forward, especially after they went in and they added in all the underwater world maps for all the maps in game already. So I wouldn't say that's necessarily people being supportive of submarines coming to the game. That's just more of them accepting that they are. Next big question that I see all the time in a statement or in a question: why don't you add submarines only to a separate battle type? Wargaming states creating a ship that is limited to only one battle type does not fulfill its main purpose, increasing the diversity of a gameplay. We want all ship types to be present in all battle types, including the main one of our game, random battles. One of our key principles is that if a player has researched or purchased a ship, they should be able to play it in the types of battles they want to, with the exception of some temporary events and activities. That's why we tweak subs for balance in our main battle type, rather than limiting them to any separate type. If a ship type is limited by only one battle type, it becomes not only less interesting, but also does not fulfill its main goal, increasing gameplay diversity. And this diversity, as mentioned, is a key factor for such live service games as World of Warships. So, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. If they're going to introduce a class into the game, they're not going to spend all the time, all the money designing the ships, designing the mechanics, testing the ships, balancing the mechanics as best as they can. Well, attempting to balance the mechanics as best as they can, adding in all the maps for all the underwater maps for all the maps, and then just stick them in submarine battles. That's anyone who has any type of idea of how a business is ran. Businesses don't dump money into stuff just to severely limit its usage in game. They want to sell premium subs. They want to, get people to grind the ships and get people to spend time on premium time and things in game. They're not just going to go and stick them in one mode, obviously. So I think that point's been pretty obvious. Shotgunning. At this point, shotgunning is not widespread. Oh, I wouldn't say that. The individual player's experience plays a large role in the outcome of using that tactic, as well as their ability to anticipate the steps of the enemy and change their tactics in time. Certainly, we have seen various videos of experienced players using shotgunning effectively. However, such players have a significant impact on battles using other ship types as well, and can effectively implement various risky tactics. On average, there will be many factors in battle that prevent most players from effectively shotgunning enemy ships. In addition, over time, players will gain experience and better understand how to counter submarines, which will also make it more difficult to use this tactic. Therefore, we believe that in real battle, shotgunning, although applicable, will rarely happen. As we mentioned before, we are not planning any significant changes, yada yada yada. Okay, so they do not down here. If, however, after these updates over, we see that shotgunning has become a widespread problem, we will address it as part of the future changes to the new ship type. Okay, the shotgunning tactic, and what they mean by shotgunning, this is where you're in a submarine, there's an enemy ship, like, right in front of you, you're submerged. You basically surface for, like, a split second, launch your torpedoes, and then dive as fast as you can. I don't see how players have a massive problem with this, because unlike the other times submarines are doing damage to you when they're undetected, pinging you for 15 minutes and launching their homing torps at you from like 8 kilometers away where you can't see them and they're not spotted, at least this way they have to get close to you, close enough to you to where they can surface and launch their torpedoes at point blank range, exposing themselves to yourself and your entire team on the surface where you can do damage to them. I mean, before, when you could do it at like point blank range, I'd understand why it was frustrating. But now, like with the unguided torpedoes, they have like I think a 1.2 kilometer arming range, to where you can't be point blank anymore. You have to surface some distance away to pull it off, and it is a very risky tactic because it just takes one ship to have hydro running, or one plane in the air to spot you as you're surfacing to, throw off your attack run. I'm more okay with it. I'm much less upset when someone pulls that off in a submarine rather than just pinging me for 10 minutes. That's my 2 cents on that. ASW on Dutch cruisers Leone and Othotnik. Currently, we do not plan to add ASW on Leone and Othotnik. Dutch cruisers, however, will receive depth charges. Thank God. So they just know that if a ship historically carried depth charges, they give them in game. But Leone and Othotnik were not equipped with them. Dutch cruisers said they don't mention if there's going to be the ASW charge or depth charges, or like ship-mounted depth charges. It sounds like ship-mounted depth charges. They note, as for researchable Dutch cruisers, we plan to add depth charges on them. This will take some time since we need to update the models of these ships. Therefore, we are not ready to share their exact time when it will happen, but we'll surely inform you once we're ready. Thank God, finally. It sounds like they're ship-mounted depth charges, so that'll be interesting with a golden line. How do you fight a submarine if you cannot deal damage to it? Damage is just one of the ways to interact with the enemy. At the same time, ships are not always able to interact in this way with every possible target. There are several options for interacting with a submarine. The first is inflicting damage. The vast majority of ships are equipped with depth charges or depth charge airstrike. Submarines on the surface and at periscope depth can be damaged by shells, ships, and aircraft torpedoes, bombs, and rockets. But if there is no direct way to do damage, it is worth relying on allied support and using other countermeasures. Many ships are equipped with hydro, which can detect a submarine at any depth. Subs can also be detected by surveillance radar, but only if they are surfaced. Via the signs of the submarine presence, fuel spills, and ping launch effects, you can determine the ship's approximate location, change position, and avoid its attack. After all, submarines' dive capacity is limited, and sooner or later it will be forced to surface, becoming vulnerable. So sure, there are other ways to interact with enemy ships and other ships in the game, but doing damage is the main way that you get rewarded. Sure, you get reward for spotted and taking and capping caps and defending caps and stuff, but you're mainly rewarded out of the damage that you're done with them. Now, if they could increase the income from spotting enemy ships, just getting spotting damage or tanking, sure, this would be a bit more of a valid argument. But they also basically say you need to learn how to guess where the submarine's at, because you get the fuel spills now, you get the hydrophone effect, and you get the pings, the visible pings on the surface of the water. So you have to basically get used to trying to deduce where the submarine's at, then dropping your depth charges on them. And obviously too, if you know where they're at, you can avoid their torpedoes. Torpedoes are homing. If you're near an island, you can obviously maneuver around the island and force the torpedoes to whack into the island and such. So it's, I think, a pretty valid response, but I do think they could have worded it better. There are other ways for interacting with a submarine. Yeah, okay, Wargaming. So this is a question I've been having for a very long time. Why did you decide to keep nullification of sonar ping sectors via the use of damage con? This consumable was already used for mini tests. That's an understatement. When nullifying sonar pings, damage con is serving the same purpose as it does when fighting fires and floodings. By using it at the right time, you can avoid or mitigate damage. Therefore, we consider damage con to be an appropriate countermeasure. Instead of a submarine that pings a target, it could be, for example, a light cruiser that sets multiple fires on the target actively firing HE shells. This would overload the damage con to a similar extent. Yes, a submarine hits the target with a ping more often than a cruiser sets fires. However, there's no need to nullify the sector after each ping hits. You only need to do it when torpedoes are at a relatively close distance so that you can evade them after nullifying the sector and avoid receiving damage. So here's the thing though, Wargaming. Let's say I'm on fire in two places and then I get pinged by a submarine. So now I have to play the guessing game of, okay, are there torpedoes on the way? Am I safe to put out these fires and not get vibe checked by torpedoes? Because most ships have battleships have a 16-second damage con active time. The cruisers have depending upon what cruises, 5 to I think 10-15 seconds, like the upper echelon for some of the cruisers. I think most of them are somewhere around 6 or 7 seconds. And in that runtime, after that runtime is over, the submarine can easily just ping you again. So if you're like a tier 7 cruiser or a tier 8 cruiser and you don't have a heal and you got 2 fires on your ship, you kind of need to be able to put those out, you know? But you can't, because if you get pinged, you have to hold that until you know for sure if those torpedoes are on the way. And as fast as the submarine torpedoes are, it still takes a hot minute to get to the target. And, 30, 40 seconds goes by with 2 fires burning on your ship. That's a significant amount of damage that's coming off of your ship now, because you're waiting to see if these torpedoes are on the way. And then, too, the submarine, like they admit that, you can put so many pings on an enemy ship in such a short amount of time. Now, granted, now since they added in the visible pings and the hydrophone effect are in the game at once, it's easier to punish now, because if someone just keeps pinging from the same place over and over and over again, you'll literally be able to track the ping back to where he's at originally. But it's still something that's annoying as hell when it happens to you. And again, what I want to use my damage gun for, then want to hold it in case the torpedoes are coming. Don't want to take the risk that their torpedoes aren't on the way, or they're still far enough away to while I have time. I'll have time to maneuver to throw them off, so forth and so on. I still think for the pings, they need to add in some type of mechanic where the battery gets drained like they used to with the pings, or it needs to increase the submarine's detection radius, let's say after every 5th ping in a, let's say, 15, 20, 30 second duration. When you're pinging that much, sonar pings are loud. And ships with hydrophones, which is most ships during World War II, will be able to hear where that's coming from, so therefore you should be detected a little bit easier. Or maybe it should make the hydrophone effect, that glowing white aura around the ship, be more accurate if they're pinging just incessantly. You guys get what I'm saying? As a punishment for having to ping 80 bajillion times to lock into a ship. But yeah, I disagree with this. It needs to be either on some other consumable, or it needs to have some better punishment for the submarine player that has to ping, umpteen million times in 40 seconds. Alright, ASW For Hybrids, have you already announced in the DevBlog you're planning to test depth charge airstrikes on the new US hybrid branch? Yep. Let's see. What else do we want to talk about? Okay, so this one right here. Oh, this happened in the game, in one of the games I had trying to get the background footage. Why was the guaranteed acquisition for subs removed? An accidental encounter with an enemy submarine at such close range prevented the submarines from performing their main gameplay feature, attacking from unusual positions. Interaction at such a short distance was quite inconvenient for both submarines, but it was fun as hell. It was important to destroy the enemy quickly at this distance because of the torpedo arming range. It was also impossible to quickly get out of the fight due to limited maneuverability of submarines. As a result, 2 options were left: either ram the enemy submarine or wait for help from allies. Didn't you just say that we had to you wait for help from allies with dealing with damage from submarines, but now that they're dealing damage to each other, that's a no-go? So you had to remove guaranteed acquisition. Okay, well, let me finish their statement first before I start getting on my soapbox. So it was decided to disable the guaranteed detection. At the moment, we are satisfied with the way submarines interact with each other. The only problem left to be solved is the blind collision of submarines underwater. We are working to find a solution, but for now, we do not plan to bring back guaranteed acquisition for submarines. Okay, so again, you just said that you just told players that if they can't damage submarines, you need to, wait for your allies and wait for help from your allies. But now, with submarines detecting each other at 2 kilometers in, that's a no-go. The only 2 options were to ram or wait for help, or wait from help from your allies. And I guess since neither of those situations were convenient, they removed it. Why? Make it like 1 kilometer. If the submarines are that freaking close, they should be able to hear each other on their hydrophones, on their sonar. So just make it 1 kilometer, or like 500 meters, something like that, where when you are that close, you can see each other, because when you are, again, basically kissing each other at 500 meters, you should be able to see one another. Oh, man. What else do we want to see? Ooh, this is interesting. How do you plan? Because a lot of these questions are questions that they've answered multiple times before. I'm trying to get to the new ones. If you guys are wondering, because like, why does it take so many depth charges to destroy submarines? TLDR, your depth charges are missing, not hitting directly. The new ribbons that indicate a direct hit versus an indirect hit should help mitigate that. And they go over the distance to damage coefficient with depth charges. Again, further away the ship is, the submarine is from the depth charge, less damage it takes. You drop something right on its head, it's going to do a lot of damage to them, so forth and so on. But right here, do you plan to increase the efficiency of destroyers against submarines? Could they have a choice between depth charge, airstrikes, and ship-mounted depth charges? No. That is the short answer. And they basically say the airstrike's easier to use, but with the higher accuracy of the DDs depth charges, they do more damage. Now with DD dropped depth charges, where you have to sail over the ship and actually drop them, I think those should hit a lot more harder than the ASW planes, because you're having to go out of your way to sail over this thing and drop depth charges on its head. Now they do drop, in most cases, a hell of a lot more depth charges than the planes drop, but if a player is going to go out of their way to do that, I feel like the damage from those should inherently be much greater. So this one's interesting because they have this problem with CVs too. How do you plan to solve the skill gap problem of different submarine players? Currently, the difference in skill among submarine players is on par with the rest of the ship types. Really? This is okay. Skill differences between players become an issue when there's a significant gap between the battle efficiency metrics of different player cohorts. In the case of submarines, the difference in skill across player cohorts is on par with the rest of the ship types. As an example, let's compare the differences in win rate between different player cohorts on submarines and destroyers, the closest ship type to submarines in terms of gameplay. The graphs show the increase in win rate difference for different cohorts of players compared to players with an account win rate lower than 47%. Blank 0% players with an account win rate lower than 47%. Orange, players with an account win rate of 47 to 51%. Green, players with an account win rate of 52 to 56%. That's me. Purple, accounts with an win rate above 57%. So, if there is a value of 10% for green bar, that means the players with an account win rate of 52 to 56% have a win rate 10% higher in this particular ship than players with an account win rate lower than 47%. As an example, it's compared Tier 8 and Tier 10 submarines with three most popular destroyers added to these tiers. So Kagoro, Benson, and Akazuki, and then below they've got U-190 and Salmon. And, well, yep, that does look pretty close, huh? And then Gearing, Holland, and Shimakaze, U-2501, and Balau. Huh. That's weird, because you sure don't see this in game. In game, it's like CVs. The submarine dies in 2 minutes, or, against Captain Ramius from Hunt for Red October. That's a lot of what I'm seeing with the submarines right now. That's Huh. I don't know what to say about that. That's weird. Again, that's not what I'm seeing in game, but granted, I don't know if this is just on like the European server, the North American server, or if this is like across all servers. But sure feels like on the North America server, there's a big skill gap between submarine players. But if these numbers are true, I guess not. Again, who knows if these numbers are accurate? Only Wargaming, but I mean, they can't release the raw data for all, 80,000, 100,000 active players for World of Warships. That'd be a hell of a spreadsheet at that point. But yeah, okay. That's interesting. That's really interesting to me. Okay, are there plans to reduce the speed of submarines? There are no plans for this at the moment. We are happy with their speed. The submarines' lower speed combined with their not-so-high weapons range will make the gameplay for the new class boring and reduce their effectiveness. Much of the time in combat, a submarine would not engage the enemy and would have fewer opportunities to retreat or change the direction of attack. So this is something that, I see a lot of comments saying that they're too fast, they're too fast, they're too fast, they're too fast. They've really dropped the speed down a lot. I mean, underwater now, and this is something that I didn't even notice when I was doing the I-56 video. Most of the higher tier ones cap out around 17, 16 knots, which is really slow for tier 10 when they're underwater. On the surface, yes, they're still quite fast, but again, from a gameplay point of view, if you're designing a class for a game, you want them to be able, to participate in the game. If they only went 20 knots on the surface, they would barely be able to do anything. So I think it's a fair trade-off that they have to get in within like 10, 12, 13, 14 kilometers of an enemy ship to get their torpedoes off. So that is relatively close, especially by tier 10 standards and higher tier standards and all. And truth be told, a lot of your surface ships in game 2, they accelerate and decelerate much faster than they did in real life. That's just the nature of making an arcade-style game. Alright, that's it, guys. I don't want this to be like a 40-minute video. There are a couple of points here that we didn't go over, but we hit most of the main ones. So if you want to check out the DevBlog for yourself, again, link to that is in the description down below. Please do so, because again, there are some things that we just kind of glossed over here. But do you guys think Wargaming is listening to your feedback based upon these answers here? I mean, it sounds like a lot of refuting what the player base is saying, but they're bringing up data, they're bringing us graphs and explaining, hey, look, it may feel like, and certainly again something that I'm really surprised about, it may feel like there's this big skill gap between submarine players and the players of other ships, but look, there's actually not, which again, that's pretty surprising to me. But again, there's a lot less players playing submarines all in all right now, because they're not really a popular class. At least, I mean, shoot, I really don't see them that much. Now, granted, they are in early access right now, so they're not fully out. So that's probably why at the moment. When they fully release, I do expect the first couple of weeks to be, well, hell. But then after that, I think a lot of the hype will die down, and they'll probably stabilize with like maybe one every other game, something like that. But even when they were giving these ships out for free, you rarely had more than 2 in a match, which is what it's supposed to do in terms of matchmaking. But we all know how that can not go that way every so often. But yeah, we'll see what happens when they get fully released. But anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments down below. What do you think about Wargaming's feedback to our feedback? Do you think they're listening? Do you think they're kind of just plugging their ears and putting their head in the ground when it comes to submarines? Share those thoughts with us down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday. Have a wonderful rest of your week. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 40,000 subscribers, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. Again, hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.